Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Kyle. I like to make things in my mind appear on a computer screen.
Excellent. This is Nick. I am an above average communicator of numbers.
Hey guys, this is Brent, and I'd like to think that I have more situational awareness than J.R. Smith. If
Welcome
you don't know what
to
I'm talking about, watch Game One of the NBA Finals.
welcome
And,
to episode 3 of If I May. Let's go. Quick life updates. Number one, my wife and I, we officially have an apartment in Colorado. So very exciting. It looks very nice. We have a bocce ball court. I didn't know they made those. I thought you just kind of grabbed the bocce balls and threw them around on grass. Apparently, there's legitimate courts for bocce ball.
Kyle, question with that. Do you guys also have polo fields? And where do you store your horses? If you have a bocce field, it sounds like it's a pretty ritzy place.
No polo place, but it is very nice, and it's also expensive. So that's exciting. But we're not living outside of our means, but it looks like a resort. We should like it a lot.
I think I heard something about a pool.
Yeah, there's also a pool. It's like a junior Olympic one, year round heated with a spa next to it. 4 lanes. It's also got one of those, like, I don't know what they're called. They're like the little ledges that are only like 6 inches deep, but people can like lay on them with like the lawn chairs or something in sun. I don't know what they're called, but it's like a little
Like a
ledge.
patio?
Yeah, but it's like part of the pool. It's just like 6 inches of water for like 6 feet, like lane width. It's like a 5 lane pool, but one of those lanes is only 6 inches deep for people to like sunbathe on or whatever.
They're in the water while they're sunbathing.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
Yeah, there's like
okay?
there's like the standard pool size, but then there's just an extra little lip for being 6 inches wet, or I don't know. It looks cool though.
Yeah, so I've seen people at the pool where they have their lawn chairs and they bring it into the water and then they lay in their lawn chair. And I always wonder what's the point of that, because you could just sit on the side on the ground on the lawn chair and you're not getting wet. Like, there's no difference where
Zero
if you're
to-
in the
yeah,
pool or
I don't
not.
quite get that either. I guess maybe you can get your little
If
tootsies
if I
wet.
if I may,
Yeah,
the easy access to the water while you're in a situation like that, it can be very hot when you're tanning in the sun, and it
you
is
just roll on over.
ever so luxurious to just take your hand, place it in the water, and kind of rub it on your skin, cool it down a little bit. You don't want to be too hot.
Rub it on your skin.
You can also
Just
have your
lather it.
just,
Lather
Hey,
it.
a-
just a splash,
just
all
a
right?
splash,
Just
just
a
a little
splash.
splash. Okay,
Now,
get off my
of
topic.
course, one would not be splashing if there were no splashing sign in this pool.
I don't know if there's no splashing sign. I think splashing is okay.
All right, question again for you, Kyle.
Okay,
Can your dogs are allowed at this? I heard.
that
Are
is
you
true. They're
allowed to bring your dog in the pool?
I would assume not. I do not. We don't have a dog. We will be getting a dog. We don't know what kind yet. We'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, dogs are allowed. I'm assuming probably not in the pool. And then I forgot what I was gonna say with that. But dogs
All
are
right,
allowed.
moving on.
Oh,
Right.
they have a. Sorry, I remembered. They have a dog washing station. Like they literally have like a room that's heated that you can like bring your dog into and wash your dog. It's next level.
All right, and speaking of apartments, Nick, you're looking for stuff?
Yes, at the moment we are looking to move to a different area of Minneapolis and have been meeting with a realtor and looking at the various online websites. Zillow has been very successful for us in the past and currently, and also looking at the potential of buying a house and what that may consist of. Not taking it too seriously at this point, but if that's something we want to do in the coming years, I'd like to have more market research than would be available if I were to just turn around and say now's the time to buy a house and hope for the best that at that exact moment the market's perfect, because the likelihood that is not going to be the case. So we're trying to do our research now and gather as much information as possible, and that's all horribly exciting.
Very exciting. I cannot wait to not have to do the house market search. I feel like that's going to be a pain in the ass. Not excited for that.
Most likely. And Brent, can you tell us what's going on with you lately?
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, I guess he doesn't have a whole lot going on.
Yeah,
So
no,
I will
nothing going on with Brent.
I will proceed to jump into my first topic for the day, which is interview tips amongst the many things I happen to have going on in my life. I like to actively interview. Not that I'm looking to change jobs necessarily, but I firmly believe in keeping myself available, and I'm not active in the sense that I'm looking for jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn or anywhere else. But I'm fairly proud of my LinkedIn profile, so I'll give myself some kudos there on having a well put together profile. And actually, I worked with a former high school friend of mine to kind of get that in shape and make it look as good as possible. And I would say on an average basis, I think I have 1 to 2 recruiters a day, pretty much every day during the week, who I get notifications for with respect to people checking out my profile. And as a result of that, I have probably 3 to 5 messages from recruiters offering, interviews for, at least the first level interview for different jobs within the accounting and finance market in the Minneapolis area. Now, it's a hot market, and I have a skill set that's, I'm very fortunate, in demand. So I kind of pick and choose, and I'm not looking for a horizontal move of any kind. I'd be looking for a vertical one. I'd like to, increase what I'm doing and what I'm making. But as a result of one of these messages, there was an opportunity with a fairly large organization that I couldn't not take seriously. So went through the process there and interviewing. I like
So,
to
Ron,
learn
real
about the
quick, if I may,
organizations.
the LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn's one of those sites that it's like I feel like I need one, so I have one, but I don't really like look at it that much. I guess how much value do you think you put on that? Like, should I be sinking more time on my LinkedIn profile and actually having it look legit? Like, I don't even know if I've updated it since. Like, I guess I'll have to update it when I transfer over to Colorado.
If I may,
Whoa, he does exist.
No, that's what
He's
happened.
alive.
All right, so my mic unplugged, so that's why if it sounded like I wasn't there. That's
Anyhow.
stupid.
It didn't
Anyway,
sound like
but
you weren't there. You
so
just
for
weren't there.
LinkedIn, I'm gonna say this that Kyle, you as an engineer have kind of a skill set, a job that LinkedIn is kind of made for, something where you could get hired at any number of big corporation. In my case, as a environmental educator, I find that LinkedIn sends me jobs like, oh, you could be a janitor, and that's kind of disheartening for these big companies. So it's one of those things where I think for you, if you're just to have that updated, you could get some pretty cool opportunities. Nick, as an accountant, also is probably going to get some good action. But for me, I think the most interesting I got was some guy wanted to advertise his worm farm and thought I would be interested in it. So
you would be a great worm farmer.
If I may,
I think it depends on your thing.
Brent raises a great point regarding who is the targeted audience here. A targeted audience for someone with Brent's degree and career choice is probably not your super tech savvy user of the internet who is easily found on a website like that. People in his field don't typically communicate in that fashion. Now, in your case, Kyle, I think I could probably dedicate an entire episode to LinkedIn, things to do, things not to do, how you want to effectively market yourself and communicate, and I'd be happy to do that. But that's probably a full skill set. To answer your question, though, yes, this is something that if you would like to seriously look at opportunities within other organizations at some point, and you're flexible enough to make a change, or would like to be presented with options, if you put in perhaps an hour to 2 hours of time working with me or someone else. I won't say I'm amazing. I've taken all my notes from a friend from high school, like I mentioned, Gary, and then I've been to a few seminars where
Shout
some
out to Gary.
speakers talked about LinkedIn.
Shout out Gary.
Well, I don't want
Way
to
to
give him
go.
his last name, but yeah, Gary was the guy with that kind of communication, and
The man.
I was able to pick up through some speaking seminars I attended through work, a number of LinkedIn tips and how it's properly used and different things you can list on there. And you do want to have some personal things, but again, I could dive into a whole episode essentially of LinkedIn tips and tricks. And if that's something you'd like to do at some point, I know you're in the middle of transferring positions, so now might not be the perfect time. But
yeah, I'm okay
if you wanted to set something up.
I'm legally obligated for at least 6 months.
If you wanted to set something up, though, I could definitely do
contractually. There we go.
And as to Brent's point earlier, being an engineer, you will be far more coveted on a website like that.
And I've gotten a couple of recruiters hit me up here and there, but I just never really pay attention to LinkedIn or throw my stuff up there. So,
and if that's the case, then you'll probably have a heck of a lot more if you have the right terminology, the right presentation of the information. You'll be batting them away, trying to keep your space. But it's a good place to be. It's kind of fun. So,
and if I may, you're in a spot too where you can be picky. I mean, you're in an option where you already have a very good career going for you. You're comfortable. You don't have to move unless you absolutely want to, or something blows you away. So, I mean, it's kind of the fun of it is now you can kind of just let them come to you instead of having to do all the work.
Absolutely.
And yeah, my current company that I work for has definitely treated me right, so I'm pretty happy there. So I'm good for now, but I think it's one of those things. I probably should update my LinkedIn profile at some point just to have that there, just in case. You never know. But
absolutely.
So Brent, if
I may, I had technical difficulties, or just difficulties. Maybe I don't have more situational awareness than J.R. Smith, but I am going to give you a life update of what I was doing this past weekend, and that was the state track meet. We brought down for our team 33 athletes on the boys and girls track
program. You coach
program.
A high school team?
Yes, high school track. It was the state track meet this week, and 33 is a phenomenal number. And you would think with that big of group of people that we could get somebody to get some sort of points, but we were shut out.
Wait, how many people are on your team total?
Boys had 120, girls had 90. So, I mean, out of 200, getting 30 is actually a phenomenal number.
Right, that's pretty
I think
good.
we brought the most. They said at the dorm that we stayed at that we brought the most. We had the most rooms out of everybody. So, seems like we're kind of a big school.
You're a big deal.
But it was an amazing experience. I think anytime you go to a state competition of any sport, you just get some phenomenal talent, and I saw some performances that just blew me away. It was really cool to be a part of, but it was also just disappointing that we didn't get anybody on the podium. We didn't get anyone getting medals around their necks. We just had a lot of, we didn't perform the way we were supposed to, and I think that was disappointing. But I was thinking, and this is kind of what I'd like to talk about a little bit today, through that meet we're at this meet, and we took, for one of our relays, we took 10th, which was last in our heat. We were the very last. But then you think about it, and even though we took 10th and we were last, we were still 10th overall in the state. So, I mean, we're the 10th best team in the state, but yet at the same time, we didn't do very well at meet, and it stunk because we weren't there. But you think about it broad term, it's like 10th best. And I think you guys have both been high school and, in Nick's case, college athlete. At what point do you feel is success worth celebrating, or should we be super excited that we're 10th, or is that being disappointed that we didn't beat some teams at the race?
If I may, I think it's a lot of how much. I think it's kind of that classic kind of mushy thing where it's like, did you do your best? Yes. Well, then yes, be proud. But if you went out there and they were like staying up super late the night before, or not to the level they should be, or we're messing around, then yeah, maybe there's definitely a learning lesson there. So yeah, I think it's definitely in the view of the person competing. If they know they did their best, then they should be proud of it. If they could have done better, and they know they could have done better, then.
If I may, along that same train of thought. This may be a bit socialist of me, which is not something I would ever claim to be by any means. With the life experience I have thus far, I have to agree with Kyle in the sense that a team is, yes, you want to go out and you want to win everything all the time. That's what everyone wants, but it's unrealistic. There are very special few who are the best at something or will have careers at the next level, especially with running and going to college. And I guess my personal thought on the matter with athletics in high school and frankly, even in college, again, I get the drive to win. I've had that. I've been there. I've done that. Well, I'm not going to say I won everything. Certainly I experienced plenty of losses. I was on a basketball team that won 2 games my senior year. So I've done very well in some sports and very poorly in others. So that being said, when you look at the high school sports experience, I think it's more about growing as a person and learning to have the right kinds of habits in the future. I mean, gym class, and Kyle, your wife is a gym teacher, or was briefly.
FIAD teacher. Apparently, you don't ever call it FIAD teacher, a gym teacher.
Excuse me.
That's a whole nother conversation. Goodness,
but
don't
that
get me
being said,
started
teaching life lessons and wellness, and there's so many life lessons in sports. But if you have athletes who simply do not have the talent to win number one and to compete at the next level, I would always be a proponent of saying, where did they start the season and where did they end it? And it doesn't even always have to be athletically. I mean, you'd like it to be, especially if you're working as hard as you probably should be. But even as people, that's one thing I can say in the football program that I grew up in for high school. There wasn't one person who went through that program who wasn't a better person at the end of it. I had a group of coaches that if they said to jump off of a bridge, it was in our best interest as people to jump off that bridge. I mean,
if I may
jump, you say how high.
I think you're putting a little bit too much trust in a coach to jump off a bridge, but carry on. I mean, I get your point. I think a lot of it too is just perception and relative, and I think disappointment is honestly a part of sports, and it's an excellent venue to learn about disappointment. Like, I came off and I was really disappointed, but at the same time, how we put me in perspective, like, wait, we were 10th in state. That's phenomenal. And also, I think it can serve as motivation for a lot of the runners next year who didn't graduate and are able to come back and say, you know what, I can work harder. I can be better. So, I think that it's a good spot to learn how to be disappointed. And that's something that's kind of difficult.
Well, what percentage of your team was seniors versus underclassmen?
It was mostly underclass. The boys team had I coached primarily girls. The boys team had more seniors. The high school male track athlete kind of peaks when they're a senior, and for girls, they usually can come in 9th, 10th grade and do a little bit better. So,
if I may, I think you're missing the point of my earlier statements. You're focusing on the athletic achievements, which, yes, worthy of note, and you always, don't ever lose that drive to win. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is if you're in the long game truly for coaching on any level, it is my firm belief that you should focus on developing good people and showing the improvement from where they started at the beginning of the year to the end of the year. You're going to have champions that come through if you coach long enough, that you're going to be able to coach and get excited about and really push them to be the best that they can be.
The Michael Jordans, the freak athletes.
Those are going to be few and far between, most likely, unless you have just a tank program or a tank setup within a high school that's what they're known for. But one thing you can always, or you should always be able to take away, is that you had a group of people start the season, and at the end of the season they weren't the same. They were better for it. That was more what I was trying to get at.
Oh, and I agree with that. I think that's what kind of happened this season. So as a coach, I'm proud of that. And I think the hard thing I found being a coach is that you just want it so bad for your athletes because you see how much work they put into it and how dedicated they are and how much they've improved. So you want them to get that PR. You want them to achieve success because you kind of root for them as a person. I mean, you're coaching them and trying to get them to be their best, but at the same time, like I felt like a lot of times I was the biggest fan as well. You know,
Okay,
go
so
get 'em.
if I may, can I make a real quick joke about business and being a professional along that same train of thought?
I'll allow it.
Defining success. If you ever are working on a project, and this is a demotivational quote of sorts, if you're ever working on a project and you find you don't meet your goal or you fail at the end of the day, the key to success is simply redefining failure or redefining success, changing those goals, and then celebrating accordingly.
I like it's like since
We
getting into
did it. We're 10th in state.
oh, yeah. Well,
Perfect.
since getting into like the business world, I think some of the business jargon is super funny. Like we like to have basically like a low crap, I can't even think of the word now. Promise low, but then exceed expectations. Crap.
Set the bar low.
No, yeah, but it's like under promise and over deliver. That's the word. So basically,
Oh,
like
yeah.
we're gonna tell you we can't do, we don't think we can do it, and then if we do it, you'll be happy, or if we do slightly more, you'll be happy. Like
Right.
basically,
We never want to overpromise and underdeliver,
Yeah.
so we underpromise and overdeliver.
yes.
Naturally.
If I may, the business world is. Do they still use Synergize? Like that's still a big thing.
I would say
We gotta have
Synergize isn't quite as
synergy.
big.
That's a mostly laughed at term, and if you read any serious business articles of any variety, they address certain terminology like that. And having worked for a number of years now in several different business environments, there are people who have buzzwords, or they're very easy to pick out when you hear them. And synergy was one that blew up and became recognized in many circles as a real thing. Now today, that kind of terminology's fallen off. It can still be referenced and used, but it sounds kind of cheesy, so most people avoid it. The ones I can speak to previously would consist of, okay, who's texting me? I guess all I do is I drink and I know things. Tyrion Lannister of Game of Thrones, ladies and
That's a
gentlemen.
good one. That's a good one.
Anyway, thank you. That is my text ringtone. At any rate, where I was going with that is I worked for an organization, and the sales guys had certain terminology where you knew they were trying to sell something, and I mean sell it in the sense of get our people to provide the service. They had a customer who was willing and ready to buy, but it may not have aligned with what we were attempting to accomplish strategically. So they would throw around words and things that would get executives, they knew what to say to turn somebody's head. And the words that were used in the company I'm speaking about were, wheelhouse, sweet spot, and strategic. If you were trying to focus on, we're going to be a call center, we're going to be the best gosh darn call center in the world, all of our new business will be for call centers, the salesperson who had a buyer would bring in an opportunity and say, hey guys, I know this isn't what we were after initially, but this is right in our sweet spot. This is in our wheelhouse. This is a strategic investment.
This is what we can do.
Exactly. So they would say they knew the right words to turn the CEO's head to say, well, okay, we have this whole strategy over here, but Jim over here in sales says there's a great opportunity with great margin over here. So you still have those buzzwords. They're always going to exist. Synergy was one that blew up, and it blew up and was accepted on a mass scale throughout the business world. But I would say that one today, although it still has an applicable methodology and meaning behind it, if overused or said more than twice in a meeting, in all seriousness, it just becomes a bit of a joke.
So just to put today I learned into this thing, a wheelhouse, for those of you who do not know, this is from Wikipedia to quote my source.
You didn't know,
is
so Nick was saying that and you weren't sure?
Is the small enclosed parts of a bridge from a ship, which historically held the steering wheel. So if it's in your wheelhouse, it's where your steering wheel is. Just think about that.
That's fantastically deep. Thank you.
Anytime they say in the wheelhouse from now, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll get her in the right direction. I got her. We'll take a hard left. No, we'll go port.
The place with
Sorry,
the wheel.
port.
As a takeaway here, I didn't get to dive into my interview tips, but I understand we're coming up on the end of our desired time.
Oh no, I'd say let's keep. I got more time unless you want to get out.
No, we're
Right.
fine. But we can go to the next topic. We're only at
Yeah, I
35 minutes.
Well,
I wanna
I got
We're in the
my
business world anyway.
my topic got sidelined by a quick hard left into LinkedIn world, which is its own separate situation. As far as the original topic, which is interview tips, I was going to share my very quick tips, which I actually gave to a friend today while I was at Valley Fair. That should have been another life update. Went to Valley Fair today. Had a friend whose company rents out the park once a year for all of their employees to go to Valley Fair for free, and you can bring your family. Well, we all claimed to be family so that we could go, which was
We're Facebook family, at least for today.
we're basically brothers. It's whatever. We're all Packer fans, except one of us, but he broke his collarbone, so take that, Justice. At any rate,
Yes.
I had a friend asking about the interviews and the tips and tricks, and there were a few things that I always do for interviews, and I don't put a ton of effort into it because generally I'm a pretty good communicator, especially when it comes to talking about myself. I'm a bit egotistical, a bit narcissistic, whatever you want to call it. I'm very good at talking about myself.
You get talking up.
Yes, which is great why we have a podcast.
Or
so I can
yeah,
talk.
what is it called? So there's there's managing up and managing down. So like managing down is like taking care of the stuff that you need to take care of, and managing up is making sure that your boss knows that you're really good at taking care of the stuff that you need to take care of.
Yes. So with that knowledge, most of my interviews are sharing things about myself, and it's basically a conversation that I would have with a friend. I can talk about all of my details there, so I don't need to worry about the stress that comes about what am I going to say? I can't say the wrong thing. I do enough reading to stay active and up to date, so I'm probably ahead of a number of people, especially in the accounting and finance industry, where everyone talks to their shoes and is not able to be understood because they're not great speakers. So I have that advantage certainly right off the bat. But anyway, refocusing my interviewing tips, the things that I like to do for a round 2 interview. There's always the screen for someone in HR, or in my LinkedIn situations, I'm going through a recruiter first. So the recruiter has a rough idea of what they're looking for and really wants to cover the basics, check their boxes before they send it on to the actual hiring manager. Those first round interviews, I can do those in my sleep. That's not a big deal. And I'm not going to waste time on those. The second round interview, where you would actually come in or you're talking to the manager, are where my tips really come in. Basics for at least my industry, accounting and finance. If you know who you're interviewing with ahead of time, it is absolutely policy that you should be looking up that individual on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn will then give them a notification saying so-and-so was looking at your profile, which is kind of creepy, but also useful in the sense that they now know that you're doing your homework. You look them up. And when you look them up, it's not just to have that little notification come up, although that's handy. The things that I look for are something I can connect to. If I was going to meet with an accountant who worked for Coca-Cola, and he's the hiring manager or she's the hiring manager.
I love
don't wanna be
Coca-Cola,
sexist here.
especially with that buddy captain.
Good friends of mine. I met with them Saturday, actually. At any rate.
Oh man. Oh gosh. All right.
So, example, we have a hiring manager from Coca-Cola. I've looked them up on LinkedIn, and they're going to get the notice that Nick has looked at them at this date and time, and they're going to say, okay, well, Nick was doing his prep. That's good. He's actively engaged. He's not just doing a quick Google search. He's taking the time to look me up. That's good.
10 whole
When you're
minutes
looking
before
at
the
their
interview.
profile, ideally, you want to do it the night before, at least.
I'm just kidding.
It's a fair point. We'll throw that in as a tip. Do your research ahead of time. At any rate, when you're on that person's profile, you want to find something you can connect with. I recommend writing down the person's name on your note sheet that you would take in. If you have a little portfolio, write down who you're meeting with, their name, and then 2 to 3 things you can pick out from their profile, something you can connect with. So this manager from Coca-Cola happens to have graduated from North Carolina. Well, hey, North Carolina, I didn't go there. I don't have that connection, but I am a basketball fan, and most North Carolina people probably are too. So what do I know about North Carolina? Well, Mays is the last name of the senior player who did not go to the draft and will be coming back this year. So I can just say, hey, went to North Carolina, and remember the comment about Mays. Okay, well then beyond that, I can say he's worked for the current organization that I'm applying to, Coca-Cola, for the last 18 years. Okay, has worked here for 18 years. That's a very easy segue to make a connection to show you've done your research beyond the notification. Hey, Carly, nice to meet you. You're the hiring manager. Oh, hey, I noticed you went to North Carolina. Did you see that Mays came back? The basketball team should look pretty good this year with him coming back. Easy in, easy out, good to go. As you're asking questions, hey, I'm wondering what the average tenure of an employee in this department is. I noticed when looking through your information, you've been here for the last 18 years, 15, 20 years. Yeah, maybe you don't want to be that specific to 18 years, 6 months, and 3 days, but you've been here.
Oh, I did my research.
I know that, though.
I also know where you live.
So you've been here the last 15 to 20 years. Can you tell me why you've stuck with the company? And that's a great way of asking a roundabout question of, tell me about the culture. Why are you still here? I mean, that's fantastic. And tell me about it. So you're asking a question and acknowledging that you've done your homework. It shows you're interested, you're actively engaged, little things like that. So taking the time, looking the person up, and making those connections throughout the interview. Don't force it. If there's never an opportunity, if they're just hammering you with questions and you can't throw something like that in, there's no need at the end of the interview to do anything over the top. But if there's an opportunity where you weren't able to connect with somebody, but you still get a chance to shake their hand, hey, I really appreciated your time. I know that you've been in the organization for a long time, and your input and the ability to answer my questions means a lot. Thank you for that. It's those little opportunities. They're there. Don't force them, but it really goes a long way in showing you're interested, actively engaged, and connected, and it makes you a lot more personable. Again, stay away from the overly specifics, though.
I think the research thing in general is definitely a really good tip. I know at the college I went to, they had a hiring event kind of thing where they'll bring in local companies or even just statewide companies, have them come in, and you can kind of go around and potentially get interviews for either jobs coming out of college or internships or co-ops. And then one of the things I did that was super useful is I literally just made like a little note card of every single one of the companies, because a lot of companies, when you hear their name, because they give you a book of all the companies that are going to be there ahead of time. A lot of times, just by their name alone, you're not going to know what they do. So you have to kind of look them up. And so I'd make a little note card saying, here's the company name, here's what they do, here's what I would potentially be interested in, and then maybe like a question or something that I could ask that company, and I'd have a couple generic questions if I didn't have anything or if I wasn't that interested, but at least have it there. And I'd always draw out like a little picture of Wisconsin, and then put like a little like star kind of thing where they're located. Number one, I knew I wanted to be within a couple hours of where I was currently living because I didn't really want to move too far. And then number two, it shows the homework, and then I can say, oh, I see you're in northeastern Wisconsin. How do you guys go up to Menominee Marinette area, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really good tip for if you have those hiring fairs or whatever, I forgot what it was called, but the company fairs at your college or university.
The next tip I actually have is one of those things that I. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I just want to put to the point, and I think one thing that you two are both doing, and it's a phenomenal tip, is just being personable. My dad told me one time when he was applying for the job that he got, that the hiring person actually went out and took him and got a beer with him. They went out to the bar afterwards after the interview because the interviewer wanted to be able to work with somebody who he could go out and have a beer with.
It's a big thing. It's a big deal.
You're looking, because you're joining a team here. Not only do you have to have the skills and know-how, but you also have to be able to fit in and synergize. I mean, okay, that was lame, but synergize with the team. You have to be able to
bring it around.
Come in. You have to be able to come in and be able to be someone that, hey, you're sitting next to me. I don't hate sitting next to you every day. I actually look forward to being there with you because it makes for a better work environment. That's a big part of it.
And I guess kind of going off of that, if wherever you're interviewing has some sort of like nice facility, like if it's a manufacturing facility or even an office space that like they make something or they do something special, you can ask for a tour potentially at the end of it, and if they have time, especially if they offer the tour or they're like, yes, that sounds like a great idea. That's another good opportunity to do that same kind of thing, like Brent was saying, is, have that more one-on-one, a little bit more laid back interaction where you can bring stuff up. It also shows your knowledge of the company, and then it also can kind of show them the way you think. I know at one point in time I was interviewing for a co-op, which I was offered, but I ended up not taking it, and it was at a food processing facility. And so, like, the kind of questions I was able to pose for them, like, oh, why don't you guys try doing that? And they're like, great question. Can't do that because of this, this, and this. But it shows that you're now thinking in the way that would impress them. Kind of, you have the right mindset on the questions you're asking, or, and then you have the more personal interaction.
Yeah, I would agree with that entirely. Next tip, if I can jump into that one, is bred from experience, unfortunately, in this specific case. If the company you're applying to is publicly traded, look up their financials. And I say that knowing how to look up financials if they are publicly traded and how to get to the appropriate information. But one of the organizations I joined was not publicly traded. I therefore was not able to look into their financial performance before accepting a job position, which I had. And they were unfortunately clearly going bankrupt, and I couldn't see that, and nobody said anything in the interviews, which left a sour taste in my mouth with respect to meeting with all these people, being excited about a job, and trying to turn things around. And when you say you want to turn things around, you're thinking, okay, well, they're not making as much money as they'd like.
To do that.
Yes, I did. I was moving for other reasons as well, but I ended up jumping into an organization, and because they weren't publicly traded, I couldn't see their financials. Well, when I finally saw their financials, I thought I had put something, together incorrectly, but I hadn't. It was an accurate statement, and there were a whole lot of really big red numbers, which turns out means you're losing a lot of money. So if you have the ability, you want to look at a company's financials. And certainly, if you can, you want to comment on their financial performance during the interview. Again, don't force it, but you can sit there and say, "Hey, I was looking at your financials but in preparation for this interview, and I'm kind of wondering, what's the strategy? You guys seem to be doing very well. What's creating your success, and how does my position affect that success?"
If I may, I think that might be more for an accountant position that might be affected. As an engineer, I think that's definitely something that's a good tip to look into to kind of see how they're doing. But I think not focusing the question towards financials, but what's like the business strategy in general would be maybe a better question to pose, rather than directly saying that, hey, I looked up your financials, you're not doing too hot, what's up with that?
Well, yeah, if it's looking poorly, that's more of a red flag for you as a potential job applicant. But I would, regardless of your position, accounting, finance, that is a fair point. I'm obviously more interested in that than most would be. I would still make the comment, though, if you're able, what is the strategy, or how does what I do impact where this organization is going. Now, if you're the one cleaning toilets, you're not worried about that. You just need to focus on your thing, and regardless of how well you clean the toilet, it's not going to affect the organization as a whole. But still good to do your research and figure that out, because you won't be cleaning toilets for long if the company's not making money. It's tough to say because you don't want to kick an organization while it's down, but one of the cold hard truths about business is a company doesn't owe you anything. And it's painful because I'm just a numbers guy, and maybe this is me being biased, but a company doesn't owe you anything. Everyone wants to be loyal and preach, great environment, and that you would do anything for your coworkers. But time and time again in business history, cuts have been made to make numbers. And yeah, people hide behind the state. Oh, it's just business, or you need to do this or that. And a lot of the inspirational speakers I listen to, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, addresses that, yeah, companies have set arbitrary goals. They want to make 30% margin. They want to have this kind of net profit. They want to be doing this well. And one of the levers that, if you will, that you can pull in a business is to let people go, because then you don't have to pay them. And the fact that people become a lever within an organization that you can just get rid of is far too common. And in the spirit of that, you don't owe a company anything ever.
Yeah, if they're not treating you right, then yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've had a great recent history or history period, if you will, with your organization, which is awesome and a great story. And I wish you and the organization, nothing but more and more success. But I've been exposed to a little bit of the opposite side of that coin, especially going through a bankruptcy. It is a battle. I mean, you don't know them.
To clarify, that's not your bankruptcy. That was the company's bankruptcy.
Correct. No.
I
have never gone bankrupt.
If I may, this is kind of a really good life tip that you're talking about, and it's to look for red flags. Anywhere you're going, like if you're going to join an organization, you need to look and do your research, like you were saying earlier. Research what are they being talked about in the news? What is their strategic plan for the future? How are they forecasting out? Because you're absolutely right. If you don't research ahead of time, you could be on the curb in 6 months, because that's somehow how long it but I think the thing is the signs are there, and if you want to go on this a little bit more as another tip, but I think part of the way you can find these red flags is during the interview. So are there questions that at least either of you guys like to ask?
One moment, Brent, are you a little close to your microphone?
Oh, sorry,
you're blowing it out a little bit.
Dang it, technical difficulties.
There you go.
No, so I was just wondering, are there interview questions or things that you can look for during your interview that can maybe give you an indication of this is a phenomenal place to work, or this place is going down in the dumps?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Circling back to the comment you had earlier regarding what was it? I'm completely blanking right now.
Well, I think kind of to answer Brent's question is that, basically asking, what's the future plan of the company? Generic questions like that. What's the company growth looking like? That kind of thing. To answer your question, you go with company growth would be a good way to phrase that and ask that question.
Mm-hmm. Circling back to the being personable comments, and it was really cool that your father was able to get a beer with that individual, and he ended up getting that job. That's awesome. That's what you want. People you're comfortable working with, people you're going to be around. One of the things I would say is, if you do interview with an organization and you don't have chemistry, chances are they will feel the same way, and frankly you won't get the job. But don't let that be a bad thing. I would never recommend you pretend to be something you're not. If they need, a super hyper peppy person and everyone there is super punctual, and you're more of a laid back individual who still gets things done, hopefully, and everyone there is just in your face and super happy peppy, and that's not who you are, that's probably not going to be a great fit for you. They're going to have expectations that you're like them. You're one of them. If you have that feel, don't try and become something you're not in the interview, because if you do convince them, which depends on how good of an actor you are, that you can be something and that's not who you are, that's going to lead to a lot of issues down the road, and maybe some hard feelings between you and your fellow employees, where you come in and you represent yourself as one thing, and then in reality you show up and you're just horrible. Now, I don't have a perfect example that I'm willing to admit. It wasn't me. It was someone that we gave the nod to, because I'm someone who has historically helped with hiring decisions, and we brought in an individual who had quote unquote public accounting experience, and the individual in question did actually work in public accounting, but they never did anything. They never were anything that someone who has public accounting experience should be. And this individual came in, and it was not ideal. We couldn't fire the individual, but we wanted to, because it wasn't there. The individual was more focused on things outside of work than she potentially should have been, and it created a lot of issues on the team. I can't go into details, or I'll choose not to go into details to maintain the anonymity of the situation. But it was very clear that when she had gone through the interview process, she claimed to be one thing, and when she started to perform the work, and even a year into it, it wasn't the same. It was she put on an act, and we bought it, and we had to pay for it.
If I may, go ahead, Brent.
Go ahead. No, you first.
Well, I was going to change topic, so go ahead.
Oh, I was say, if I may, that feeling of being like blindside like that reminds me a lot of actually something I heard about on the news a few weeks ago. So this is kind of hits a little close to home. It was probably 2 weeks ago. I was hiking up on Mount Si, which is just outside Seattle, probably 30 minutes. Beautiful hike. It was just walking through the Pacific Northwest, kind of getting acquainted with it before we move out there. And I mean, it was a little foggy, so the view wasn't great, but you really kind of felt connected with nature. And it turns out, actually, just 2 days after I was out there connecting with nature, nature connected with some people in the form of a cougar jumping out on a couple of bicyclists and killing one of them, which is an unfortunate situation. And I think it kind of puts in perspective of like, I was there. That cougar could have been watching. Yeah, I know, but I could have been walking. That could have been me and my wife, which I think is crazy. And it's hard to kind of put in perspective. It's first off a terrible tragedy. And it's actually kind of uncommon. It's only here we go. If I may, factoid of the day, or stat of the day. It's been like the second one in 90 plus years or something like that. A puma attack. So it's not like it happens very frequently.
Brian,
but
back up a smidge.
Oh, gosh, is it really that? I mean, that's sensitive.
There you go. Whatever that was. Yeah, you've been kind of off with your sound.
Okay, maybe you just had me turn up too much. Anyway, though, it's just one of those things where it's like, do I stop hiking because this happened? Should I be concerned because like the wild is not necessarily a safe place for us humans? Or?
So freak accidents happen all the time. I guess one thing, actually, my wife and I will have to consider this as well, because moving to Colorado, if we go hiking in the mountains, same story, like same stuff can happen. One of my uncles actually used to live in Colorado, and apparently he was biking up there, and a cougar came out, and he like raced down the mountain on his bike with a cougar, like chasing him for a little bit. So, yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. But I think it's one of those things where you just have to get have something with you. If you can have a knife even, or if you are able to do a concealed carry in the area, that's definitely an option. More as a deterrent to the animal, and just to defend yourself, I guess. I don't know. Bring a knife with you.
Yeah, I've always been a proponent of keeping a knife on me if I'm in the woods. And, the worst thing I could ever come across is a bear. And the chances of that are, well, seeing a bear is not all that uncommon, especially in the Upper Peninsula. But even the few times that I've gone hiking or backpacking with Megan, I like to have something on me, whether that's, the concealed carry or just a fairly sized knife to have something, because I think
something is better than nothing.
It's the first time in 90 years. Well, I believe in, and not that I'm a Marine or can ever claim to be anything amazing like that, but some of their sayings, always prepared. I like to be always prepared. I respect that train of thought.
That's the biggest thing, respecting the wild. You have to know, hey, this is the wild. You have to know that kind of thing could potentially happen.
Yeah, hopefully you never need it, but if I ever do need it, I want to be one of the few who have something.
It's kind of like, the conceal carry argument about, why do you have to carry a gun on you? It's like step one to win a gunfight is to have a gun. So that's one of those things that if you don't have it with you, it's not going to help you. So,
I think the thing that got me too is just that it hit so much, like so close to home, because it was, I was there. I was at that place just before it happened, and normally I think when I've gone hiking in the past, it's not something I normally think about, but It's one of those things where it's like, oh my goodness, this very feasibly could have been. I mean, we were hiking, there weren't that many people around. There's a good chance that, what if it was? And I mean, what ifs, you can play those all day, but it was just, I thought that was kind of crazy and just strange. I don't know.
Yep. I mean, it's still a very wild world out there. At any rate, with that, do we have anything else we wanted to cover today?
Yeah, I have a bigger topic which we can save till next time, but I guess my topic that one of the smaller ones I can spit out there is just a Plex media server. It's basically like having, you set it up on your own computer. There's a free version and there's also a paid version. The free version is pretty much the exact same functionality as the paid version, except the paid version gives you a little bit extra customization on stuff. But it's a media server, so you can set up on your computer. So if you have any multimedia files, whether those be personal, even photos, music from your iTunes, or if you have any movies from the digital downloads, I know a lot of movies or DVDs and Blu-rays come with that DVD download. You can set up a media server on your computer, and you basically have your computer as your own personal Netflix. So you can access them from anywhere in your house, as well as if you have your password on, there's an app for pretty much any device where you can go in and access that through the internet as well, and then have your videos. That way you don't have to store them on your phone if you're going on a trip. So pretty cool stuff. So if you're interested in that Plex media server, and if there's for some reason a bunch of comments about that, I can make a short video and put it up on the Zarubust YouTube channel about the basics of setting that up. So for a closing do you have
wait, hold up.
Sorry, go ahead.
If I may, before you conclude, just a question off of that. Would you say that with the advent of Plex Media and as it grows in popularity, would this be kind of the beginning of the end of traditional media as we know it? I mean, people buying CDs, I don't think even happens as much as it used to. DVDs, are those going to go by the wayside? Kind of like what Spotify did with music? Or
I would say most definitely. I think not even Spotify, but like between Spotify, Pandora, even the Google Play Music Store and the iTunes Store, people don't want to carry around physical things. I know even like playing Xbox. I mean, how many games I can maybe have 5 physical discs. The rest of it's all just on the hard drive, digitally purchased, downloaded. Even like the Nintendo Switch. We have the Nintendo Switch. We have maybe 5 games total that are physical cartridges. The rest of them are all downloaded. So, for me personally, if I don't have to carry this stuff around, I'm all in. So yeah, I definitely think that DVDs and Blu-rays are going to slowly phase out when digital media and the higher quality internet is spread around the country.
That's when the hackers strike.
One of my coworkers has a really cool background screen on his computer at work, and it's all of the outdated media sources made into little character figures that are
like cassette, 8-track, all that.
Yep. Crying and holding hands, and I think above it says "Never Forget." And you'd be a fool to think if CDs weren't going to join that group in the relatively near future.
Definitely, I know. My brother, a couple years ago, when I was in high school, so more than a couple years ago, but my dad found somebody was throwing out a big milk crate full of records on their front lawn. My dad picked them up, just to rifle through them, see if there was anything good. And he had them in the back seat. We picked up my younger brother, Colin, from school, and he had those in the back seat. And Colin's like, "What are these?" My dad's like, "Oh yeah, there's some Pink Floyd, some Def Leppard, some rock." I'm like, No, Dad. He doesn't understand what those are. He's never seen a record before. He's like, "Oh." So yeah, it's kind of funny, and yeah, technology evolves.
It's kind of sad. I feel like the one downside of not getting, this physical thing is I always looked forward to going to the store, saving up my money, going to the store, then physically purchasing it, having this disc in my hand and being able to put it in and play for the first time. And there was kind of like a journey to get to that, where I feel like now it's,
If I may, was the CD by Journey?
No, it was a game, I'm sure. I think it was Battlefield 2142.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Great game at the time, not so much anymore.
I think it still holds up fairly well. Anyhow,
I guess, but that's a different thing. But it's just, I feel like one of those things is, when I go on Steam or whatever it might be, and I purchase a game, then all of a sudden I play it within 5 minutes. I don't ever leave my chair. I don't. It's just kind of that one of those instant gratification things, and I don't know if it's more practical, but the nostalgic part of me, which probably is kind of useless, but who knows, is kind of sad by it.
Sometimes you just want to blow out a cartridge.
Oh,
You know, the
I bet.
just to give it a good clear. That way it plays when in your NES.
That's another favorite reference of old technology. The gamer T-shirt that has a picture of a Nintendo cartridge that just says "Blow me" above it.
Oh gosh. All right. We're good on
Classic.
this.
All right. Final
that
segment here.
note-
Final segment here,
on that
and
note.
listen, no discussion. You can't ask any questions. You just got to vote. Is a hamburger / cheeseburger a sandwich? Nick.
Is a square a rectangle? By definition, it is.
So your vote is yes, it is a sandwich.
Yes.
Brent.
So first off, the hamburger was discovered in Seymour, Wisconsin. So big plug to the great state of Wisconsin. But I would say
Hashtag no discussion.
this isn't really discussion. I'm just saying in general that some things transcend.
No, yes or no, Brent.
It transcends what they are. So they might be similar in the way they're created, but a hamburger transcends what a sandwich is, and it is not a sandwich. It is greater than.
So it's its own entity. It's not a sandwich.
It's above. It's a higher being.
My vote is that it is not a sandwich. I believe it is its own thing. And my main point being the whole bun situation. Now you might consider, what about sub sandwiches? They're literally called sub sandwiches, but like that has, I don't know. I think it also depends on what's inside of it too, because like a sub sandwich has like sliced meat, whereas a hamburger has ground beef that is put into a patty. That's my vote.
All right, that's my
Squares and
cue.
rectangles, gentlemen. Squares and rectangles.
All right, I gotta get going
All right.
with that note. So
That was episode 3 of If I May. Hope everybody enjoyed. Again, we'll be coming at you every single Thursday. We're still on Anchor and YouTube, and hopefully sometime soon on iTunes and Google Play. We're working on it. They are not Anchor. Supposed to be this awesome thing, and it's turning into a little bit of a pain. So we might just end up doing the whole iTunes and Google Play thing on our own. So we'll figure it out. But on that note, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye now.